Okay, so our first chapter is titled The Importance of MIS. Okay, why MIS important, why we end up studying. And MIS is a discipline that kind of has a problem. It has a little bit of an insecurity problem, right? Because very few students, like high school students, have ever heard of MIS. You know, don't even major in it because they don't know what the heck it stands for. I talked to our enrollment management team a few years ago, and about half of them didn't know what the acronym MIS stood for. I'm like, you're out there supposed to be selling, you know, this MIS program, but you don't know what that acronym means either, okay? So oftentimes MIS students come from like computer science or engineering or management, and they realize what MIS is. So we're going to start at the very basic. This is even before we get into the slide. We're going to talk about MIS, the acronym, okay? And we're going to look at that because it's really, you know, three big words in that acronym that have like kind of hard to define. What's MIS stand for? Let's start there. That should be our first question. Yes?
Management information.
Okay, management information. Let's take a word at a time. So the first one is management. Some of you are business management majors, you say proudly. What is management? Or like give me some verbs that managers do. What are some verbs, some things that managers do? Give me some verbs that managers do. Yes. Manage. Okay, manage, okay, got it. But that's still kind of general, right? That's still kind of general. Give me some verbs they do. EB?
Organize.
Okay, I like that. Organize, very good. Ashley?
Oversee.
Okay, so oversee, organize. We'll say, yeah, supervise, I like that. Anything else? Plumbing? Control, very good. What else?
Plan.
Plan, I like that. Planning. Anything else? Franklin?
Dictate.
What's that?
Dictate.
Dictate. All right. Let's say decide. Who does what? We'll say dictate, decide. I like that. Forecast, we put in there. Okay, forecast, planning, control, dictate, decide, supervise, organize. That's pretty good. Okay. Managers do a lot of different things, right? Management is a very general skill. You can manage St. Francis University like Father Malachi does. You can manage the Pittsburgh Pirates. You can manage a country. You can manage a classroom, right? Management is a very general skill. It involves all those things. You're right. Very good. You know, getting things done through others is another definition. I don't really like that definition. Sounds like you're using people, but that's another definition. So that's management, okay? Big one. A lot of things going on there. How about the I? I is information. What is information? What is information?
Knowledge.
Okay. Information, you're right, is kind of the precursor to knowledge. We start out with, you know, data. And I've talked about, you know, data is being generated at an alarming pace now, right? You go anywhere, you do anything, you're generating data. You know, you park, you're going to generate data, right? We just talked about that. You drive somewhere, you generate data. You register for a class, you generate data. You buy something on Amazon, you generate data. You watch Netflix, you're generating data. So data is just raw facts, right? We take that data and we analyze it, we summarize it, we manipulate it, and we create information, which is data organized for a particular purpose, right? And it does create knowledge. You said it creates knowledge because once we have information, now I know something, right? I know something. That is knowledge. You know, I think I used the same little diagram yesterday in stats. Knowledge itself is power, right? Sir Francis Bacon once said, knowledge is power. And once I have knowledge, right, about something, understanding something, I can question it more. Maybe I gather other data. You know, maybe now, you know, the parking example, now that I have who's parking here, maybe I go out and ask, well, what's the demographics of these people? What time is it? You know, maybe I generate, it's called the knowledge cycle, right? So information, we're going to talk about that a little bit later in chapter 1, but information is data for a particular purpose, right? How about the last one? And these are all kind of hard to define things. We know what they are, but they're not easy to define. The last one is systems, right? And, you know, your coach may say, hey, get with the system, or we have a system to do things here. And probably in 8th grade biology, you define systems, and there's a classic definition of the systems, at least when I went to school. What is a system? Franklin, what is a system?
I just thought of like an order and how things are done.
Okay, it's an order of how things are done. Okay, that's true. Systematically do something. This is not how we do things in our system. Our system, but go ahead.
Many things working together.
I like that one. I like that one. And think about the example. I used 8th grade biology for an example because what systems do we study in 8th grade biology?
Body.
The body systems, right? And I don't know, we have how many systems in us? 7 systems? Ron, you know. 7 systems, right? So we have integumentary, nervous, central, skeletal, nervous, and digestive. That's the only one I really focus on. Okay, the digestive system. And you think about what a system is, it's an interrelated set of components working together for a certain purpose, right? And you said a set of components working together. An interrelated set of components working together for a certain purpose. Your mouth, I guess, is part of your digestive system, your esophagus, your stomach, your intestines, all those kind of things are components of your digestive system. They work together for a certain purpose, right? That's what a system is, okay? You have a system with a football team, a lot of things working together for a certain purpose, hopefully to win games, okay? So that's what a system is. So if we think about that, okay, think about those 3 things, which are all kind of, hard to define, and try to bring it all together. What do you think management information systems are all about then? Try to take all 3 of those things and put them together. What do you think management information systems is all about then? What do you think it is? Hey, Franklin. Go ahead.
Organizing data so it can be put in a systematic order.
Okay. All right. I like it. It's a good start. It's a good start. Frank?
Like a network.
Okay. A network is definitely a component of a system, right? Okay. You're right. What else? Come on, what else? Those were good. Those were very good. I guess I'm still looking for that, you got me. That was it. Those were 90%ers. Come on, someone. Rodrigo, give me something. No?
Organizing data that works together to get information from it.
Yeah, it's good. It's good. Okay, think about what an information system. What are components of an information system? Give me components. We talked about that. What are components of an information system? What are the things that come together? Remember we said a system is an interrelated set of components? What kind of things come together? Like say the parking system. What kind of things have to come together to make that system work? Yeah.
Hardware and software.
Okay, we have hardware, you're right. Hardware, software, we'll talk about this later. Data, procedures, people, okay? All those things have to go together and work together, right? They have to work together. And their main purpose is to translate data into information for some managerial purpose, right? And that's not, I'm just pulling that out of the air. That's not something you have to memorize. But I want you to think, because I hate memorizing definitions, but I want to think to you what this class is all about. There's all these instances where we have processes and data, and we can apply, in part, information systems that are comprised of those components. Networks, databases, GPS devices, cell phones, people, procedures. And why do we employ it? Because we can manage things better. We can control, we can organize, we can supervise, we can plan, we can decide better, we can forecast better. Yes? Yes. Okay? That's what this class is all about. That's what we're trying to do in this class. We're trying to understand the types of information systems we can use to do that. Okay, so when I go through slides like this, you'll see that I probably skip about half of them, because there's things the book thinks are important that I don't think are important, right? So, but there are some aspects of this chapter that I do think are important. Oh, my clicker's not working. Darn it. Okay. So the first thing I do think is important in this chapter is a famous law. And this is often taught in intro to MIS classes, often taught in computer science classes, and is kind of one of the things that they say, you know, if you come out with a business degree, you should understand something called Moore's Law. Have you guys heard of Moore's Law before? Moore's Law? Anyone? Okay. Have you heard of the company Intel? Have you heard of the company Intel? What does Intel do or make? What is their claim to fame? What's Intel do? Yeah, they make processors, right? They make processing chips, yes? Okay. Well, this is like in the late 60s. The president or the CEO of Intel was a gentleman by the name of Gordon Moore. Okay, Gordon Moore. And in a conference or something like that, he said this. He said the number of transistors. Transistors are kind of like the little circuits on a chip that control, like, you know, it's all binary, ones and zeros. We'll talk about that later. But the number of transistors per square inch on an integrated chip will double every 18 months. That's a pretty bland statement, right? Okay, so what? What does that mean, though? The number of transistors on an integrated chip will double every 18 months. What is the consequences of Moore's Law? What has been the consequences of Moore's Law? Because he said it'll roughly happen, and it has. It has followed that kind of growth since the late 60s, which is crazy kind of growth. It's called exponential growth. If you doubled every 18 months, you'd be, think about it, you'd be a mile tall, right? Okay, if you got twice as smart every 18 months, forget it, right? That's not how things grow typically. So what has been the consequence of Moore's Law? Pablo?
Lower costs.
Okay. The next slide shows us what this has done, okay? This is computer price performance ratio historical trend. This is what that looks like, okay? And you can see for the same processing power that cost around $4,000 in 1984, it costs less than a penny. And this is all weighted to today's dollars. It costs less than a penny today. Think about that. Okay, think about that. So what has it done? It has driven technology into every corner of the business world because it has made it cheaper, it has made it ubiquitous, and has driven it down because now these things are so cheap to produce. The processing power is unbelievable. I'm not that old. Yeah, I know you think I'm old, but I'm not that old. I don't feel that old anyway, okay? And I can still remember, the first student at Portage, my school that I went to, that got a calculator, all right? And she was the daughter of a doctor, all right? So, they were rich, right? They were filthy rich in our minds, yes? And she brought in this calculator, and it was like, you might have well brought in, a spaceship, right, in the Portage. It was about this big, right? It was about this big. You had to plug it into the wall. It was like a car battery size thing, yes? And all it did was like addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. That's it. It didn't have any exponents. And it was hundreds and hundreds of dollars, right? I don't know what it was, but in today's dollars, it was probably thousands of dollars. And now, heck, I think up in the closet near my office, I have 5,000 calculators that do the same thing that we give away at like open houses and stuff. Like, here's a calculator, right? Because they cost pennies. They cost pennies. If you think about Moore's Law, what good thing to demonstrate that is think about video games. What was the first video game the Miko family had? What do you think the first video game the Miko family had? And actually, I can remember this family discussion. We said, can we go on vacation or get this video game? We said, we're not going to beach, we're going to get this damn video game. What do you think the first video game was that the Miko family had? Not the Tenor, before that even. Before that even. Pong. You guys know what Pong is?
Yeah.
You know how many games you played on Pong? Pong. Okay. All you had was this thing with two paddles on it. You went up and down. That's it. But we got that, on our, and people, it was like in a swimming pool. All the kids were our friends then. Go to the Mikos to play Pong. It was a big thing, right? Now think about where the technology is, okay? And think about the price of those things. This is crazy, staggering kind of growth. Another good example, I think I mentioned this first class. Think about flat screen TVs. very cheap now, right? Any new technology like that. 3D printing just a few years ago, for the cheapest 3D printer was like $25,000. Now you can get packages of them for, a couple $100, okay? Here's the example they always use. If the car industry followed this same scale, if the automobile industry followed this same scale, just think about cars. I know they're nicer than they were in the 60s, but think about it, they still do about the same damn thing, don't they? They go from 0 to 60, they get you from point A to B, with basically the same technology. They still cost a lot of your income to buy one, right? It's still a big purchase. If cars follow this kind of growth, okay, you could buy a car, okay, for less than a dime that would get you from Pennsylvania to California in under 10 minutes for a thimbleful of gas, okay? If it followed the same kind of growth. It doesn't. But the computer world has. That is the implication of Moore's Law. That is why what we're talking about today is going to be old school just next year, right? Anything you bring in this class is going to be defunct by next year. It's amazing, okay? Some of the consequences of this. Processing is basically free, okay? Storage is basically free. It's not free, but it's damn near free, right? I record all these audios, all these my lectures, and I put them on YouTube, and what does YouTube charge me? Nothing. I give you all Gmail accounts. What does Google charge you? Nothing, okay? These are some of the consequences of Moore's Law. Some of the biggest companies in America now, some of the ones that have the biggest market cap, didn't exist in 2005. You think about Facebook, you think about Twitter, you think about these kind of companies, they didn't exist. Okay? And now they're bigger than Ford and GM and all these major companies. And that is the consequences of Moore's Law. All right. So I'm going to skip ahead and we're going to talk about systems a little bit. Okay? We're going to talk about systems. And when we talk about systems, we can define systems through standard system terminology. All systems have 5 aspects to them. All systems have 5 aspects to them. First of all systems have inputs. These are things that come into a system, right? Whatever they are. If you think about St. Francis as a system, St. Francis University as a system, what are our inputs? Yeah, uneducated freshmen, right? Okay. So, what do you think happens in that system? If there's inputs, there have to be what? Outputs. There have to be outputs, right? So there have to be outputs. And there's some terminology that's used. If you have a system that has only inputs but no outputs, it's called a black hole. Okay. If you have a system that has outputs but no inputs, it's called a miracle. Okay. So those really don't exist. Black hole, in systems world, you have to have inputs and you have outputs. So in the middle of this thing, we have what's called the purpose of our system, right? Whatever that is, it's kind of hard to define, but the purpose of our system at St. Francis University is to educate people, various disciplines, right? That is the purpose. That is the reason we were founded in 1847, and still the reason we exist today. Our purpose for the pay by phone is to monitor parking, right? Every system has a purpose. It has inputs, it has outputs, and it has a purpose. That's the main things when we think about system technology. The other things we talk about are the boundary. And what defines the boundary, everything outside the boundary, is called the environment. Okay? So everything outside the system that can affect the system is called the environment. For example, if you think about St. Francis as a system, what can happen? What are things in our environment that aren't part of our system but can affect our system? What are things in our environment, the higher education environment? Yes, sir.
Other schools.
Yeah, other schools are in our environment. Very good. The federal government is in our environment, right? If they say we're no longer giving aid to private schools, that's going to blow up our system, right? Those kind of things are in our environment, okay? Newer technologies, competitors, our boundary defines what's outside our environment. So systems is a good way in the business world to analyze about anything. If you break it down to these 5 things, it's a good way to break things up. You know, think about inputs and outputs. What are my main inputs? What are my outputs? What's the purpose? What are the things outside the system that can define it? Now, when we talked about systems, okay, we mentioned that systems are an interrelated set of components coming together for a particular purpose. We talked about information systems. You know, information systems, computerized, electronic information systems. The book does a great job, I think, of providing a framework for this. Okay, a fantastic job. I like this framework. We're going to use it throughout this course. And even when you do your article presentation, okay, you're going to use this framework. I'm going to ask you to provide the 5 components of the information system. There's an order to this. There's a reason they're in this order. Let's talk about each one of these. And we're actually chapters in our book dedicated to each one of these. Starting on the left-hand side, or I guess when you're looking at it, the left-hand side, okay? Hardware. Okay, hardware, as you know, are the physical devices. Hardware is like the hard drive, the keyboard, the mouse, the card reader, the cabling, the access point, you know, the monitor. They are the devices, the physical devices. That's why they're called hardware. Hardware is hardware. Software are the programs. We're going to talk about the different types of programs. There's operating system, there's application software. But if you think about it, software is the instructions that tells the hardware what to do. You know, when you use the mouse to go up, move this little thing on the screen, the monitor, up, okay? When it depresses this hardware, that means open that up. That's operating system software, right? Software is what tells the hardware what to do. Store this on here, right? Read this, whatever it is. Software tells the hardware what to do. The thing in the middle is data. Data is something that has existed with any information system. Data doesn't change much. Data needs don't change much. If you think about 1847 when it was St. Francis Academy or Seminary or whatever the heck it was called then, they still had students, maybe there were only 6 of them, taking classes, right? They still had classes somewhere. They had courses being offered somewhere. They still had students, they still had faculty, they still had classrooms, they still had courses. Kind of the same stuff we have today, right? The data hasn't changed. The data in a system doesn't change a whole lot, all right? That's in the middle. The right-hand side, the human side, changes a lot. On the right-hand side, we have procedures. And procedures are the instructions for the people in the system. Think about it. Software tells the hardware what to do. Procedures tells the people what to do. When we drop a class, there's a procedure for that, right? You go and get this slip signed, you walk up to the registrar's office, they do this on the system. That's all part of the procedure, right? You're part of that person. You're a person. People are the people involved in the information system, okay? Always people are involved in the information system. So, if we look at this, okay, and we'll go into this a lot further, but if we look at this, what do you think is the most important part of this information system? Component of this information system. What do you think is the most important component? And what do you think is the hardest thing to disrupt, to change? Ian.
The most important wouldn't be the data.
It's important. It is.
Not the most important.
Important. All right. Most difficult to change. Muggy in here. Is it muggy in here? I move around too much. I gotta start wearing tank tops and shorts. I'm sweating like a pickup here.
I'd say the most, the hardest thing to change.
You're right. People like to change. Organizations like to change. Have you ever said, why do I have to change? Why do I have to do it this way? I've always done it this way, right? But people, by far, are the most important part of an information. It's the reason the information system exists, right? To serve people, okay? But it is the hardest part to what we call disrupt, to change. There is actually a symmetry here involved. It's a beautiful thing. If we think about it, this is a nice slide. If we think about it, as we go from left to right, increasing degree of difficulty of change. Hardware is the easiest thing to change, to disrupt. If this projector or this access point breaks, buy a new access point, plug it in, done, right? Okay. If the keyboard breaks, boom, put it in, no big deal. Yes? Hardware is easy to change. Software a little more difficult, data a little more difficult, procedures a little more difficult, people hard to change, right? If we think about the symmetry here, there is a nice parallel. Over here we have the computer side, over here we have the human side. And you think about the things in an information system that do something. Hardware does something, right? It spins, it displays, it prints, it does something, it beeps, you know. Hardware does something. People do something. They're called actors in an information system. They do things. The software and the procedures, software tells the hardware what to do. Procedures tell the people what to do, right? What's great about software, if I tell a computer to do something, it does it every damn time, does it the same way. People, I can tell you, give you guys something to do, you guys do it 20 different ways, right? Even if I spell it out. I've given assignments for 12 years. I've seen that, right? If I program it, it'll do it the same way. The middle, the data is the bridge. It's kind of the things that bring the two things together. Now, I want you to think about for Friday, because we're running out of time today, I want you to think about this. The process of automation. Automation is moving work, processes, steps from the human side to the people side. And I want you to provide a few examples of this that you're familiar with. Just write down a piece of paper. You're not going to turn it in. It doesn't mean don't do it. Write down on a piece of paper a few examples of things that have become automated, where work got pushed from the human side to the computer side. All right. Have a good day.
Dr. Meader, are these slides on Blackboard?
They are. I think I have the wrong ones posted, Jeremy. So they're under, if you go under PowerPoints and then down to chapter 1, they're there, okay?